The suspension of the armored Cadillac Escalade absorbed the crater-sized pothole on Fifth Avenue with a dull, muffled thud, a vibration that barely registered in the leather-wrapped steering wheel under my palms. I kept my eyes scanning the mirrors left, rear, right, blind spot, in a constant, rhythmic loop that had been drilled into me long before I traded saddle leather for German engineering. Driving in New York City wasn't all that different from moving a herd of spooked cattle through a slot canyon during a thunderstorm. You had to watch for the strays, anticipate the stampede before the first hoof hit the dirt, and never, ever let them see you sweat. But here, the stampede was a wall of aggressive yellow taxis, and the strays were pedestrians glued to their phones, stepping off curbs with a death wish. Jay, are we moving? I don't feel like we're moving. Physics dictates that motion requires velocity, and right now, my velocity is absolute zero. The voice came from the back seat, sharp and brittle, like dry kindling ready to snap under the weight of a boot. I glanced at the rearview mirror. Lilliana Morris was typing on her phone with a ferocity that threatened to crack the Gorilla Glass. She was 39, beautiful in a way that was almost architectural, sharp angles, deliberate lines, impeccable structure, and currently vibrating with enough caffeine to power the entire Midtown grid. "We're moving, Miss Morris," I said, keeping my voice low and steady. It was the tone I used for a spooked colt that was thinking about kicking down a stall door, calm, resonant, unbothered. Traffic's thick. Holiday shoppers clogging the arteries. Diplomatic freeze on 52nd is backing everything up to the park. I have a board meeting in 12 minutes. If I'm late, the publishers will think I'm losing my edge. I cannot lose my edge, Jay. My edge is all I have. It is my currency. You won't be late, I promised, checking the GPS against my internal map of the city's gridlock. I know a cut-through on 48th. But I need you to trust the suspension. I didn't tell her that the cut-through involved a service alley usually reserved for garbage trucks and restaurant deliveries. I simply engaged the turn signal, checked the blind spot, and slid the massive SUV through a gap in traffic that most drivers wouldn't have attempted. I didn't rush. Rushing led to mistakes. Mistakes led to paperwork and broken taillights. I just didn't stop moving forward. I was a rancher, born and bred in Montana. I owned 3,000 acres of prime grazing land and a herd of quarter horses that were the envy of the state. But ranching is a gamble played against God and the weather. And last year the drought had dealt me a hand I couldn't bluff. I needed cash, fast, to keep the bank off my back until the spring auction. So I called Sully, an old army buddy in New York who ran a high-end security transport firm. Rich folks pay a premium for a guy who can handle a crisis without blinking, and you never blink. So here I was, wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than my first truck, driving a woman who treated sleep like a sign of moral failure. "Jay," she said again, her voice tight. "Why are we stopping?" "Red light, ma'am. Even I can't negotiate with a traffic signal." "Well, will it? Will it green?" "I'm good, Miss Morris, but I ain't Moses." She let out a short, stressed laugh. It was a rare sound. Usually, she was all business, slicing through conversations like she was editing a manuscript. "Fine. Just get me there." I watched her in the mirror. She rubbed her temple, a gesture of exhaustion she tried to hide. She looked out the window, her eyes tracking the pedestrians but not really seeing them. She looked lonely. It was a familiar look. I saw it in the mirror every morning when I shaved in my tiny sublet apartment in Queens, missing the open sky and the smell of sagebrush. "Miss Morris," I said. "What?" "Check the center console. Rear compartment. I put something in there for you." She frowned, pausing her typing. She opened the leather-wrapped console. Inside was a small, insulated stainless steel thermos. "What is this?" "Peppermint tea with a drop of local honey. It settles the stomach. You've been rubbing your stomach since 57th Street. She stared at the thermos like it was an alien artifact. "I didn't ask for tea." "I know. If you asked, it would mean I was too slow." She picked it up. She unscrewed the cap. The steam rose up, smelling of mint and warmth, cutting through the recycled air of the climate control. She took a sip. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. "Thank you, Jay. Don't mention it. We're 2 minutes out. ETA 1358. I turned the wheel, sliding the massive vehicle up to the curb exactly as the clock ticked over. I put it in park. I was out of the driver's seat and opening her door before her assistant could even step off the curb. "Go get him, boss," I said quietly. She nodded, straightened her coat, and marched into battle. I leaned against the heavy door, scanning the street. and waited. That was the job. Wait, watch, and be the fence between her and the wolves. The threat started small. It usually does. A misplaced item, a hang-up call. But in my line of work, there are no coincidences, only indicators. 2 days later, I was waiting outside her office building. It was bitter cold, the kind of wet New York chill that gets into your bones faster than snow. I checked the perimeter. Habit, I noted a gray sedan parked 2 blocks down that had been there for 45 minutes. Engine off, but someone inside. It was too far to read the plate without optics, but the positioning was classic surveillance, oblique angle, ready exit. A bike messenger pulled up. Delivery for Lilliana Morris. I'll take it, I said, stepping forward to intercept. Need her signature. You got mine. Or you got nothing. I crossed my arms. I wasn't big on intimidation, but at 6'3" with a scar on my chin from a wire fence and a stance that said I wasn't moving, I usually got my way. The kid sighed and handed me the clipboard. I signed J. Wright, security detail. He handed me a flat black envelope. No return address. High-quality paper stock. I didn't hand it over immediately. I walked to the back of the Escalade, placing the envelope on the flat surface of the trunk. I ran my hands over it. Uneven weight distribution? No. Wires? No. Chemical smell? No. Just paper. But my gut twitched. Lilliana came out of the revolving doors a moment later. She was talking to Mrs. Higgins, a formidable woman with gray hair and a clipboard who protected Lilliana's schedule with the ferocity of a badger. I need the proofs for the March issue by tonight, Lilliana was saying. And tell the photographer if he sends me another black and white spread for the spring collection, I will personally burn his portfolio. Yes, Miss Morris, Mrs. Higgins said, unbothered. Your car is ready. Lilliana walked toward me. I opened the rear door. Afternoon, Miss Morris. J. To the apartment. I have 20 minutes to change before the gala. Yes, ma'am. I waited until she was settled, then closed the door. This came for you. Bike messenger, no return address. I've screened it for physical threats, but I haven't opened it. She took it, distracted. Probably an invite. The gala committee sends these dramatic things. She tore it open. I watched in the mirror. She pulled out a single sheet of paper. It wasn't an invite. It was a photograph. Lilliana went perfectly still. The color drained from her face, leaving her pale as the winter sky. Her hand flew to her mouth. Miss Morris? I asked, my voice dropping into command mode. Talk to me. She didn't answer. Her hand trembled. The photo fluttered to the floor mat. I put the car in park. I checked the mirrors. Clear. I engaged the hazard lights. Miss Morris, I said again. Lilliana? She looked up, her eyes wide and terrified. Drive, Jay. Just drive. Not until I know the threat level. What was in the envelope? A picture, she whispered. Of me. Sleeping. The air in the car changed. It went from a workspace to a bunker. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Sleeping where? I asked, my eyes scanning the street for the gray sedan. It was gone. In my bedroom. Last night, my hands tightened on the steering wheel. Leather creaked. Someone had been in her apartment. Or they had a lens long enough to shoot through her window from a neighboring building. Either way, her sanctuary was compromised. I reached for the comms button on the dash. Sully, I said into the mic. Code blue. Client Morris. Potential breach of primary residence. Surveillance confirmed. I need a scrub of the apartment and a protective detail on standby. Copy that, Jay. Sully's voice crackled back, instant and professional. Police notification? Hold on, police, I said. I looked at Lilliana. Ma'am? No, she snapped, regaining some of her fire. No police. The press will get wind of it. Editor-in-chief stalked. It makes me look like a victim. The board is already looking for a reason to say I'm unstable. I can't give them one. Ma'am, this is a security breach of the highest order. I know. She took a jagged breath. Just take me home. My doorman is there. The building is secure. Maybe it was. Maybe it was taken from the street. You live on the 30th floor, Miss Morris. She went silent. We are not taking this car to your apartment, I said, making a decision. If they tracked you there, they know this vehicle. We're going to the garage. We swap cars. Then I take you to the apartment, and I sweep it myself before you step 1 foot inside. You're a driver, Jay, not a bodyguard. Today, I said, checking the blind spot and pulling into traffic with a surge of the V8 engine, I'm whatever keeps you safe. And right now, you need a fence. I'm the fence. We swapped into a nondescript sedan from the company fleet, a mid-level Audi with tinted windows. I drove a counter-surveillance route, 3 right turns, a sudden stop to check if anyone mirrored the brake lights, a loop through a parking garage before finally heading to her building. Her apartment was a glass box in the sky. Cold, modern, expensive. It had 0 cover. I swept the place. I pulled an RF detector from my bag, walking the perimeter slowly. I checked for bugs and hidden cameras. I checked the vents, the smoke detectors, the backs of paintings. The detector remained silent. I stood by the window in her bedroom. The curtains were sheer linen, useless against a telephoto lens. From here, looking through the high-powered binoculars I kept in my go-bag, I could see the neighboring high-rise. There, I pointed. That terrace across the way, Unit 34B. It has a direct line of sight. If he used a 400mm lens, he could have taken that shot as easily as if he were standing at the foot of your bed. Lilliana sat on the edge of her bed, hugging her knees. She looked small. The high-powered editor was gone. This was just a woman who didn't feel safe in her own home. I'll have Mrs. Higgins call the building management, she said quietly. Get the blackout shades installed. I've already called them, I said. They'll be installed tomorrow morning. Tonight, you sleep in the guest room. It has no windows facing the street. I've designated it the safe zone. I have a gala tonight, she murmured. I can't go. I'm shaking. I walked over to her. I kept my distance 3 feet, the respect zone, but I squatted down so I was eye level with her. Look at me, Lilliana. She looked. Her eyes were dark brown, like polished mahogany, swimming with fear. You are the boss, I said. You run this city. Some creep with a camera doesn't get to take that away from you. You put on that dress. You walk out that door. And I will be right behind you. I will be the shadow you don't have to worry about. You'll stay close. I won't let anyone within 10 feet of you unless you invite them. I'll be on the headset with Sully the whole time. She took a deep breath. She nodded. Okay. Now, you get dressed. I'm going to make you some coffee. You look like you're running on fumes. Tea? She corrected, a faint smile touching her lips. Peppermint? Coming right up. I stood. My knees popped. Too many years in the saddle. I went to her kitchen. It was spotless, unused. I found a kettle. As the water boiled, I texted Sully. Run a background check? Priority 1. Anyone with a grudge against Morris. Ex-partners, fired employees, rivals. Check purchase histories for surveillance gear. I wasn't just driving anymore. I was hunting. The weeks blurred. The snow started falling, turning New York into a slushy gray mess. I drove her everywhere. I drove her to the office, to lunches, to late-night print approvals. I started picking up her dry cleaning because I didn't trust the delivery guys. I checked her mail with gloves on. We developed a rhythm, a routine, domesticity amidst the chaos. Every morning, I had her tea ready in the console. Every evening, on the drive home, she would ask me about the ranch. Tell me about the horses, she'd say from the back seat, her voice tired in the dark. Well, I'd say, checking the mirrors as the tail lights blurred in the rain, I got a mare named Bess. She's stubborn. Reminds me of you. I am not stubborn. I am resolute. Whatever you say, boss. Anyway, Bess just dropped a foal. A little filly. Legs too long for her body. She's trying to stand up, falling down, getting back up. She's got grit. Does she have a name? Not yet. I'm waiting to see her personality. Name her Lily, she said softly. I looked in the mirror. She was smiling. A real smile. Not the camera-ready one she wore for the press. Lily? I tested the word. Yeah, it fits. She's pretty too. Our eyes met in the reflection. For a second, the partition glass disappeared. The air in the car got heavy, silent. I wanted to tell her that she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, more beautiful than a Montana sunrise, but I couldn't. I was the hired help. She was the client. There was a line, and my job was to hold lines, not cross them. I looked back at the road. Lily it is. The escalation happened on a Tuesday. Beat 6. We were driving to a warehouse in Brooklyn for a photo shoot. It was snowing hard, big wet flakes that stuck to the windshield. I was in the Escalade again. We'd rotated back to it after clearing it for trackers. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Protocol. Then Liliana's phone buzzed. She frowned. Unknown caller. Don't answer it, I commanded. She hesitated, her thumb hovering. It might be the publisher. He's calling from Paris. She answered. Lilliana Morris. I watched her face. It went slack. Who is this? She whispered. I didn't wait. Put it on speaker, I ordered. She tapped the screen. Pretty in red, a voice rasped. Digital distortion. But you looked better last night in the blue silk. I went cold. Liliana was wearing a red coat, and she had worn blue silk pajamas last night in the guest room, the room with no windows. The room I had swept. Listen to me, I said, my voice deadly calm, projecting toward the phone. This call is being traced. We have your voice print. You're just the hired muscle, the voice sneered. You can't protect her forever. Cowboy? Roads get slippery. The line went dead. I looked in the mirror. Liliana was trembling. Jay? He knows what I wore. The guest room has no windows. Laptop, I said instantly. Did you have your laptop open last night? Yes, on the desk. I was answering emails. Did you cover the camera? No. Close it. Put it in the Faraday bag in the seat pocket. He's compromised your devices. He's watching you through the webcam. I checked the mirrors. A gray sedan was 3 cars back. Same make as the one I'd seen weeks ago. It changed lanes when I did. We're changing routes, I said. Buckle up tight. Hostile surveillance. We have a tail. I spun the wheel, pulling a hard right turn down a side street. Horns blared. I didn't care. I gunned the engine, the big V8 roaring. I watched the mirrors. The gray sedan followed, running the red light. He's aggressive, I muttered. Sully, code red. I have a tail. Gray sedan. No plates visible. I am initiating evasive maneuvers. Copy, Jay. NYPD is 10 minutes out. Can you lose him? Watch me. I drove. I didn't drive fast. I drove smart. I used the truck's weight. I took corners tight, clipping curbs. The gray sedan stayed with us. He was reckless. I needed an advantage. I needed terrain. I saw a construction site ahead. A narrow gap in the fencing. Hold on, I warned. This is going to get bumpy. I jerked the wheel right. We bounced over the curb, mud flying. We shot through the fence into the maze of concrete and steel pilings. The sedan tried to follow, but it bottomed out on the curb. Sparks flew. I saw it spin in the rearview mirror, losing traction in the mud. I didn't stop. I wove through the pilings, coming out on the other side of the block. I merged back into traffic, blending in with a line of delivery trucks. You can breathe now, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs but my hands steady as stone. Liliana let out a sob. Was that him? That was him. He knows where we are. He knows the car, I said. He doesn't know where we're going. I pulled over under a bridge. It was dark, safe. I turned around in the seat. We're not going to the shoot. And we're not going to your apartment. It's compromised. Where do we go? The safe house. Sully has a place in Queens. Off the grid. Analog. No cameras. No Wi-Fi. Just walls and locks. I can't just disappear, Jay. I have a magazine to run. You can't run a magazine if you're dead, I snapped. Silence filled the car. I never snapped. I took a breath. I reached through the partition gap. I didn't touch her, but I held my hand out, palm up. Liliana, please, let me do my job. Let me keep you safe. She looked at my hand. Then she looked at my face. She saw the fear I was hiding from her, and the absolute resolve covering it. She reached out and placed her hand in mine. Her fingers were cold. Okay, she whispered. Take me to Queens. The safe house was a small brownstone with reinforced doors and shatterproof glass. It was warm, quiet, and boring. We were stuck there for 2 days, while Sully ran the forensics on the call, and the sedan. It was domestic. I cooked. I made chili, the way we did on the ranch, heavy on the beef, cumin, and patience. Liliana chopped onions at the counter. She was terrible at it, using the wrong part of the knife, tearing up. This is ridiculous, she sniffed, wiping her eyes. I am handling a crisis and I am crying over a vegetable. Onions demand respect, I said, gently taking the knife from her and correcting her grip. Let the blade do the work. Don't force it. She watched me work. You're good at this. Patience. Ranching is mostly waiting, I said. Waiting for rain, waiting for calves, waiting for the bank. We ate at the small kitchen table. We talked. Not about work, not about the stalker. She asked about my family. I told her about my dad, how he lost the first ranch because he was too proud to ask for help. How I promised I'd never lose this one. That's why you're here, she realized. The money. Yeah. Bank wants a balloon payment by January 1st. How much? Enough that I need to drive a lot of miles. I could. Don't. I stopped her, my voice gentle but firm. My dad taught me that a man's worth is in what he can build, not what he's given. It's not a handout. It's an investment. I'm your driver, Liliana, not your charity case. If you pay it, I lose the ranch anyway, because it won't be mine anymore. It'll be yours. She looked at me, surprised. She nodded slowly. I understand. Boundaries. Boundaries, I agreed. I stood up and took the bowls to the sink. The boundary was there. I had to keep it there. That night, a storm hit. A blizzard. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. I sat in the living room watching the localized security monitors, closed circuit, hardwired. Liliana came in, wrapped in a blanket. I can't sleep, she said. Storm's loud. It's not the storm. It's the quiet. She sat on the sofa, pulling her legs up. I'm used to sirens. And emails. And pressure. This? Silence? It's loud? That's the void, I said. Out west, the silence is so big it can swallow you whole if you aren't careful. You gotta learn to be friends with it. You listen to your own breathing. You realize you're still here. You realize the silence isn't empty. It's just waiting for you to fill it. She watched me. The blue light of the monitors reflected in her eyes. Yeah? When this is over, will you go back? I have to. My life is there. She looked away. The disappointment in her voice hit me harder than a kick to the chest. My secured phone rang. Loud. Jarring. I grabbed it. It was Sully. Jay. We got a hit. The gray sedan was found abandoned. We pulled a print off the dash. It matches a guy named Marcus Vane. Ring a bell? I looked at Liliana. Marcus Vane? She gasped, her hand flying to her throat. Marcus? Sully found receipts, I said, relaying the info. He bought the tracking software. He bought the camera lens. Why? She whispered. Control, I said. He couldn't handle that you succeeded without him. He wanted to prove you were vulnerable. Where is he? Sully says his credit card's just pinged at a gas station 2 miles from here, I said, my voice dropping. He figured out the safe house location. Probably had a physical tracker on the escalade we missed. I stood up. I went to the window, peering through the blinds. A car was parked down the street. Lights off, engine running. He's here, I said. Get to the basement, I ordered Liliana. It has a reinforced door. Go. Lock it. Don't open it unless you hear my voice or Sully's. She ran. I heard the bolt slide home. I stayed in the shadows of the living room. I didn't storm out. I called Sully. He's on site. Requesting immediate police intervention. I am engaging to disable his vehicle. Police are 5 minutes out, Jay. Don't be a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm the fence. I went out the back door, into the snow. I moved through the shadows of the alley, flanking the street. The wind was biting, freezing the sweat on my neck. I moved low, keeping the parked cars between me and his line of sight. I came up behind his car. I saw the silhouette in the driver's seat. He was watching the house, a phone in his hand. I didn't smash the window. I didn't scream. I moved to the rear tire and unscrewed the valve stem cap. I jammed a small pebble into it. The hiss of air was lost in the wind. He wouldn't be driving away. Then I moved to the driver's side. I tapped on the glass with my flashlight. Hard. He jumped. He fumbled for something on the seat, a tire iron. I stepped back, keeping distance. Marcus Vane, step out of the vehicle. He rolled down the window. Who are you? I'm the guy telling you the police are 3 minutes away. He looked at the tire gauge on his dash. He cursed. He threw the door open and lunged at me with the tire iron. I just wanted to talk to her, he screamed. He swung. It was clumsy. Emotional. I didn't brawl. I stepped inside his swing, grabbed his wrist, and used his own momentum to pivot him into the snow. A standard restraint hold. I put my knee in the small of his back. You're done talking, I said calmly. And you're done stalking. He struggled, screaming about how she owed him, how she thought she was better than him. She is better than you, I said. Because she builds things. You just break them. I held him there, pinned in the snow, until the blue lights flashed against the white flakes. When the police cuffed him and put him in the cruiser, I stood up and brushed the snow off my jacket. My hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline dump, but I checked them. No blood. Good. I went back inside. I knocked on the basement door. Lilliana. It's me. Police have him. It's safe. The door opened. She didn't look at me. She threw herself at me. This time, I didn't enforce the boundary. I wrapped my arms around her. I buried my face in her hair. You stayed, she whispered. I told you. I'm the fence. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal statements and restraining orders. I stayed close. I drove her to the precinct. I drove her to the lawyer's office. But things were different. The silence in the car wasn't lonely anymore. It was expectant. Christmas Eve. Beat 10. Lilliana had the winter gala. It was the biggest night of her year. I pulled the Escalade up to the red carpet at the Met. The flashbulbs were popping. I got out. I opened her door. She stepped out. She was wearing a silver dress that looked like liquid moonlight. She looked unstoppable. She didn't walk to the carpet. She turned to me. Miss Morris, you look adequate. I grinned. She smiled. I have a business proposition for you. I spoke to the bank in Montana. I stiffened. Lilliana, I told you. I didn't pay it off, she interrupted. I bought the note. I'm the lender now. The bank is out of the picture. I stared at her. You bought my mortgage? I did. And I'm restructuring the terms. You don't owe me a balloon payment. You owe me expertise. Expertise? I bought a farm in the Hudson Valley. It needs a manager. Someone to handle the livestock, the land, and the horses. Specifically, a filly named Lily. My heart stopped. You bought the horse too? I did. She needs a trainer. She stepped closer, ignoring the photographers screaming her name. Here is the deal. You manage the farm. You train the horse. Your salary covers the loan payments on your ranch in Montana. You keep your land. I get a manager I trust. It's a partnership, strictly business. She held out her hand. Unless you want it to be more. I looked at the cameras. I looked at the city that I hated. And then I looked at the woman who made the city feel like home. She hadn't bought me. She had cleared the path, so I could walk beside her. I can't be your driver if I'm managing a farm, I said. Good, she said. I prefer to drive myself anyway. I just like the company. I laughed. I took her hand. It was warm. Deal, I said. But I'm still driving you home tonight. Take the long way, she whispered, squeezing my hand. I'm in no rush.